My name is Charlene Deal, and I'm the director of the Winnipeg International Writers Festival, and it is my great delight to welcome you to our very first Mainstage. This evening's show we called Technologies. So I'm very excited about this eclectic lineup, and I'm very keen to introduce them to you. Our first writer comes here from Montreal. Guillaume Morissette has a very, very exciting novel called New Tab, which is rife with new technology. Please welcome Guillaume Morissette.
Hi. So my name is Guillaume Morissette. I'm going to read from This Thing, which is a novel by me. It's semi-autobiographical, so I've used stuff from my life and I've polished it a little bit so you can decide what you think is true and what you think is not. I'm just going to read. I don't think you need to know anything about anything except maybe that Concordia is a university that everyone hates in Montreal. Yeah, I'm going to read a short thing from the beginning of the book, and I'm going to read a little longer thing from later on. Yeah, here we go. New Tab by me. We're just off Saint-Dominique in Montreal. Readiness is sturdy, mail. But we also have a bit of an evil situation right now. I'll explain in person. I hope that's okay. That's okay, I typed. I was sitting on my bed with my back resting against a pillow. It was the 3rd week of January. The laptop was testing my tie's resistance to heat. The pillow was rectangular, and the computer screen was also rectangular. I could come by on Sunday if you want, I typed. Maybe 2 p.m. About half an hour later, I received a response email from Ines to confirm the time and date. I closed 2 browser tabs, looked at the cropped heads of people on Facebook for a while, didn't feel optimistic about going to see another room, didn't feel anything. 2 days before, I had visited an overly communal 11.5. One of the roommates there had seemed excited that I had owned an Xbox 360 because he also owned an Xbox 360. I got so smashed last night, read a chat message from Shannon on Facebook. Oh my God, I need an IV bag. Plug it in my brain, through my nose. I kind of wish I was regretting last night right now, I typed back. I didn't get your text until this morning. My phone fucked me over. I would have come. I'm never going out again, typed Shannon. I kind of want to go out tonight. But maybe I need to stay in and watch that movie I bought when the Blockbuster closed down. I still haven't watched it. I might just hide in my room tonight, I typed. I can't decide if that's zen or depressing. Is it really 4, typed Shannon. I don't know if I trust what time now is. I know what you mean, I typed. Winter is terrible. Every day feels vaguely like a Wednesday, and any time of the day feels vaguely like 4 p.m. The Concordia website makes no sense, typed Shannon. No sense at all. I need the form for the external credit thing, but I've looked everywhere, and it's not everywhere I've looked. Most of the time I just Google Concordia, and then the thing I'm looking for, I typed. Google finds it. Concordia's search engine is programmed to hate people, but it's not its fault, it's the programming's fault. One of these days I'm going to ram my car into Concordia, typed Shannon. Not voluntarily or involuntarily, more like, I'll just let it happen. I would defend you in court, I typed. It was provocation, I would say. You could say I was messed up at an early age, typed Shannon, by my kindergarten teacher. She asked us to draw something starting with the letter W, so I drew Waco from the Animaniacs. My teacher said I had made that up. She made me draw a whale, a stupid whale. That's funny, I typed. On Thursday, someone in my creative process class asked the teacher what you can do with a creative writing degree. He said nothing and then laughed. Other people laughed nervously. That's true, typed Shannon. I mean, our lives are poorly planned. Realistically, I don't know how I'll be hired for anything after I graduate. If you're a girl, it's even worse. All the woman poets seem to end up locked in asylums or offing themselves. We should give up while we still can, I typed. Move to Sweden. Change both our first name to Knut. It's tempting, typed Shannon. In November, I met this guy who works at Blizzards, I typed. He had just graduated as an English lit major. His boss didn't expect him to write essays about that questioned things. His boss wanted him to cut lemons. Ugh, typed Shannon. I don't know why people are more concerned about this. They spend all their time instead being catty and backtalking other people's writing. Do you think people in other programs are less insecure, I typed? People in fine arts are probably like, did you see the abstract shapes that this bitch submitted to class? I hate that bitch. Type Shannon. No, you're right. It's probably the same thing. All right, I'm going to move ahead a little bit. This is a slightly longer scene, and it's from about like a third of the way into the book. And the protagonist, Thomas, has moved into this new house that has like a gigantic backyard. So he's kind of getting acquainted with like his new roommates and stuff. Yeah, I'm going to start mid-scene just to make it shorter. I went to the bathroom and spent an unknown amount of time applying hair product, trying to come up with a combination of face and hair that made aesthetic sense. No combination seemed entirely satisfying. I heard strangers coming in. I applied more hair product, which accomplished nothing. Thomas, come meet attractive women, I heard Brent yell. It felt like even if I managed to get my hair in a position I could live with, it would immediately rebel against me, self-destruct, revert to making me look dumb. I thought, I wish I was a torso, and that's it. Coming out, I saw that Laura and her friends were making quinoa salad and other salads. Laura introduced me to her friend, who was named Jeremy. In the backyard, Brent was lighting dollar store candles while talking to people I couldn't see. Brent, are you really wearing this? Said Laura. It's hot. What else do you want me to wear? Said Brent. You should get used to it. I'll be wearing this wife beater all summer. Maybe I'll even start beating you. I'll beat you, mumbled Laura. Several minutes later, Brent, Laura, their friends, and I sat down on an old blanket outside, began drinking, eating. For the most part, I sat there, observed people, participated minimally. Brent took over the conversation and began telling everyone a story from the summer before about Christians doing mushrooms for the first time, eating too many, then them getting separated that night, with Brent coming back home around 6 a.m. and finding Christian in the backyard staring at the sunrise, crying a little and softly repeating, "It's so beautiful," over and over again. Laura was smoking a cigarette and sharing it with the girl sitting next to her, who was wearing a shirt with garden gnomes on it, and who I was pretty sure was named Mira. I asked for a drag, which was literally ploy to talk to Laura's friend. I wanted to talk to Mira. I wanted to tell Mira about myself. I wanted to tell Mira I have low self-esteem, and my sex life probably has abandonment issues by now. And I feel very cynical about my capacity to have a stable relationship and not fuck up or grow to loathe myself within the relationship, though maybe all I want on some level is just to be proven wrong. I was introduced to Mira and told that Mira's name was Mira and that she studied studio arts at Concordia and knew Enos. Mira seemed uninterested in me and quickly escaped our conversation. Just as Brent was about to get up to go grab another bottle of wine, we heard the front door being opened and a group of people letting themselves in. "Hello," said a voice. Brent went to look and had a brief conversation with someone, and in return accompanied by firemen. One of the men explained that a neighbor had alerted him to a fire. He saw the trash can fire and said, "Is that it?" and then asked us to put it out. Brent apologized, went to the kitchen, filled a container with water, poured it on the trash can. As they were about to leave, Brent asked the fireman to hold on and then mentioned that this was his return party and that he wanted a photo of himself with sexy firemen in the background. The fireman looked normal and not sexy, but agreed to pose. Laura photographed Brent wearing a fireman's helmet and smiling, with 5 firemen posing awkwardly in the background. She tweeted the picture, adding the caption, "My boyfriend is 7 years old." Around 10, Christian returned home with Kyle. Brent told everyone that he was ordering drugs and asked me if I wanted anything, and I replied that I was okay. He went to his room and made calls. Kyle complained that Christian was 30 minutes late to meet him and seemed annoyed. "I thought you would be the same amount of late I was," Christian said. Brent received a text message from someone instructing him to meet him at an address supposedly nearby. He ran out the door and then returned 20 minutes later in sweat and in panting. A few minutes later, we locked the front door and left the house and headed to a bar. On the way there, I thought, do I want to get destroyed tonight a few times, but then couldn't think anything that had the shape of an answer. "You're fired," I imagined myself yelling at whatever brain module was responsible for making my decisions. I knew I would have to show up at work in less than 12 hours to finish a presentation, but couldn't get myself to head home. We walked in the venue, which looked about a quarter full, with most people forming a kind of huddle around the bar. A girl was wearing a plastic tiara and looked bored while DJing. I took out money from a sketchy-looking ATM and then asked Christian if he was getting anything. "Yeah," said Christian. "No, wait, hold on." Christian searched his pockets and then made a face. "I had $10 left," said Christian. "I think I lost it. How did I lose it?" "I'll buy you a beer," I said. "It's 2 for something, I think." "Are you sure?" said Christian. "Thank you. I don't know if I should have gotten drugs. I need to start budgeting again." When were you budgeting? I said. Last year when I moved out of my mom's house, said Christian. I remember I was really motivated. I wanted to plan a budget, stick to it, pile up cash, and then travel. I did it once. It worked that one time. You're never going anywhere, said Brent. You can't save money. That's your main problem. You'll fuck up at some point, or you'll get fired, or something will happen to you that will make you go back to zero or below zero. You need a job that pays you to fuck up. Fucking up is your best skill. It's true, said Christian. He laughed. I should put that on my resume. That call center place would give you a really good recommendation letter for that, said Brent. I highly recommend this person for fucking up. He will not show up on time for any of his shifts. He will sleep with his coworkers and pretend it didn't happen. He will have an excellent attitude as he causes unnecessary mayhem and destruction. If they hire me with that resume, it's my dream job, said Christian. We drank more beers. I went back to the sketchy ATM and saw Laura from afar board dancing with Jeremy and Mira. I withdrew more money and then bought shots at the bar. This is kind of stupid, said Brent. We should tell her to put on better party music, said Christian. Disco Star Wars, I said. Oh, there's a joke about Disco Star Wars early in the book. We need to do something that would annoy Laura, said Brent. Like what, said Christian. Like we're those people that are partying too hard and we don't understand that everyone else is having a shit time, said Brent. We need to be those people. Go dance on that table, said Christian. Do sexy dance moves to Disco Star Wars. That would look insane, said Brent. There's like 6 people dancing. I should do it in my underwear. You would get kicked out so fast, said Christian. They wouldn't care if I took off my pants, said Brent. It's 1,000,000 degrees in here. There's us and 20 people and the staff. They would think it's funny. Would they, said Christian. Let's get in our underwear and go dancing with Laura, said Brent. That would really piss her off. Come on, it'll be funny. Tiara girl will think it's funny. Look how bored she is. We can't do that, said Christian, smiling. We just need to both be doing this, and it'll be fine, said Brent. The staff will think it's a thing. You're doing this with me. You're not going to pretend you're doing it and then back out at the last minute so that I look crazy without my pants on in the bar, right, said Christian. I won't, said Brent. I'm doing it. Come on. Okay, said Christian. Hold on. Christian chugged a third of his beer. They began taking off their shoes and socks and looked at each other very seriously while doing so, as if afraid the other was going to back out. They both laughed. Christian took off his belt and then pants, revealing boxers that had poker chips on them. Brent, wearing red briefs with a black waistband, ran across the room and began joke dancing next to Laura, using her as a vertical pole. She laughed. Christian danced casually next to Brent. Tiara girl laughed. Other people in the bar laughed. A few minutes later, Kyle also got in his underwear and began dancing. Then Jeremy and then Laura. Then I joined. Brent gave me a high five for joining and seemed surprised that I had. I seemed surprised that I had. The dynamic in the bar was now completely different. People were excited, smiling, dancing, talking faster, louder. Getting drunk seemed purposeful again. I withdrew more money from the ATM and then alternated between drinking and dancing until closing time. Around 3, I put clothes back on, and so did everyone else except Christian and Brent, who were sharing a cigarette outside. Some of Laura's friends said goodbye and went home. Mira mentioned something about a bonfire, and we decided to walk there. Everyone seemed a little drunk and better for it. Still in his underwear, Brent borrowed Kyle's skateboard and glided down the street, but then almost tripped and fell. A few streets later, we found the bonfire at a quiet location behind abandoned buildings. Christian sat close to the fire. I gave $2 to someone in exchange for one of his beers and sat next to Christian. You should put your pants back on now, Laura said to Christian. Brent is putting on his. It's getting colder. No, I'm okay, said Christian. I'll just sober up here for a while. I haven't been to an actual bonfire in a while, I said. Hopefully I still know how to bonfire. We should burn something, said Christian. I looked around and noticed old copies of The Mirror in a pile nearby. I reached for a newspaper and handed it to Christian. He began flipping through it. I got in late at work again this morning, said Christian. I think they're going to fire me. I don't know. Are you sure? I said. It feels like it the way they talk to me now, said Christian. It's okay. I'll just go get fired somewhere else. He laughed. I like how Christian made fun of his failure in a detached manner, like he was shit-talking someone who wasn't present. He seemed both obvious and oblivious to himself. In the newspaper's cinema section, Christian found a long article previewing upcoming movies. He ripped out a page and crumbled a piece of paper into a ball and said, I hate Julia Roberts, and then threw the ball into the fire. Why do you hate Julia Roberts? I said. Do you know Pretty Woman? Do you know that movie? Said Christian. It's this cheesy movie from the 90s. That was my dad's favorite movie when I was a kid. Julia Roberts plays a prostitute in it. My dad would drink beers and watch it every couple of weeks. That lasted something like 8 weeks. I think he liked the idea of being rich and paying a movie star to have sex with him. My mom didn't care, so that didn't seem strange to him. It was just his movie. One time I was older, I remember watching it with him, and there's a scene where Julia Roberts gives the guy a plastic wrapper. I remember thinking, what's this? What's inside the wrapper? Candy? Why would she give candy to him now? That's odd. Then I realized that what she was handing to him was a condom, and that they were going to have sex, or maybe the shadows would be having sex. Then I felt something, and I'm pretty sure that was my first boner. That's funny, I said. How do you remember that? I don't know, but that's why I hate Julia Roberts, said Christian. If I see her face somewhere, I automatically think about that. Do you think you would have a boner if you watched that scene today, I said, the condom scene. Maybe, said Christian. You mean a nostalgia boner? Or like a memory boner, I said. Your body remembering the boner. I don't know, said Christian. He laughed. Maybe. Christian, you should really put your pants back on now, said Laura. I'm fine, said Christian. It's not funny anymore, said Brent. It's even weird a little now. I'll put them on soon, said Christian. I'm fine for now. Brent and Christian argued back and forth for about 5 minutes about the necessity of Christian putting his pants back on. After Christian caved in, Jeremy said that he had leftover beers in his fridge and that we should go get them. I'm going to stop there, guys. Thank you so much.
I will never look at Julia Roberts the same way again. Thank you so much, Guillaume Morissette, for that image that I now can't get out of my head. Our next writer is Peter Norman, who has written a new book called Emberton, which is very not like youth culture in Montreal. It's like some kind of strange, surreal dictionary sort of place. Please welcome Peter Norman.
Thank you. So the hero of this story is a young man by the name of Lance Blunt. And thanks. There we go. Now we're in CBC announcer territory. So the hero of the story is a young man by the name of Lance Blunt. And he's going for a job interview in Emberton Tower. This is an old, weird office building where a famous dictionary is made. Everything happens there. It's written, it's edited, it's designed, it's printed. And Lance is going for an interview in the marketing department. He has a secret which makes him profoundly unqualified to work for a dictionary. And his secret is that he can't read or write at all. He's never been able to. But for strange reasons, he does believe he can land this job. So he shows up at the office of the president of sales and marketing, and her name is Ms. Shillingsham. She was seated behind a large mahogany desk. She kept almost nothing on top of it: a flat screen monitor, a keyboard and mouse, one fancy pen erect in its holder. Ms. Shillingsham herself was a woman of around 60. She wore a maroon blazer. Perched crooked on her head was a matching pillbox hat. Her silver hair was cut straight, just above her shoulders. But her most remarkable characteristic was her thinness. Her cheekbones made shadows on her face. Her hands were all talon, the nails painted to match the clothes. A man sat across from her, his back to Lance. His head was streaked with thinning white hair, and below that was a series of ever bigger rolls: round neck, round upper back, round lower back. His whole body appeared shaped from dough. He turned to Lance. 2 dark eyes were pressed into the east of his face like raisins. "It's nice to meet you, Lance," said Miss Shillingsham, leaning over her desk to shake his hand. "This is Mr. Furlanetti, Vice President of Sales and Marketing." Mr. Furlanetti's hand was soft and profoundly squeezable, like a stress ball. Lance took the unoccupied chair. Through his thin trousers, the seat made his legs itch. "Well," said Miss Shillingsham, "where to start? It's been a while since we've conducted a job interview. This department hasn't hired anyone for a long time." "Stable," said Mr. Furlanetti. His voice oozed out as if through a mouthful of molasses. "Yes, Mr. Furlanetti, that's a good way to put it," agreed Miss Shillingsham. "We have a very stable and devoted team, truly devoted. And so we don't see a great deal of turnover. You could say our department has a lot in common with an inept panhandler." "Sorry," said Lance. "We don't see a lot of change." I know. Yeah. She knew that was bad. Mr. Furlanetti made a series of noises. Lance wondered if something had become lodged in the man's throat, but no, Mr. Furlanetti was laughing. Or, more accurately, he was making the noises that laughter was supposed to consist of. Ha, he said. Ha. Ho. Ha. His doughy torso trembled. So you may well wonder, continued Miss Shillingsham, why such a stable team would be looking for a newcomer. Lance, this opening, this new position in the department, it wasn't really our idea. Mr. Furlanetti shifted in his chair to stare at Lance. The request, said Miss Shillingsham, came from rather high up. Normally we don't seek youthful personnel, but I suppose our senior editors are worried about the future of the dictionary. How does a big, heavy, inanimate reference book survive today's plugged-in era? They want us to take this fusty old thing. She pointed to a heavy wooden bookshelf where a copy of the Emberton Dictionary stood at attention, and make it hot. She glanced at Lance, perhaps to check that she was using the right terminology. We need someone who can make Emberton sexy. Lance had no answer. As far as he could tell, Emberton Publishing had all the sex appeal of a tracheotomy. So he gets the job, against all odds, and very rapidly finds out that this is an absolutely terrible place to work. The marketers don't do anything of value. They spend all their time in pointless meetings discussing the most arcane, useless details. And he quickly also learns that something strange is going on in Emberton Tower. There's some sort of sinister plot afoot, and it doesn't have anything to do with making a dictionary. He meets and falls in love with a young woman, and together they start to try to figure out some of these mysteries. And Mr. Furlanetti really becomes a problem. He's very nosy and inquisitive. And in this scene, he has come to Lance's office to set up his email program. Now, Lance, of course, is terrified of computers. He's never used one. He can't read or write. What he can do, however, is read letters. He just can't read words. So Mr. Furlanetti has written down the email address and asked Lance to type it into the computer, which Lance has to do by looking at each letter, finding the letter on the keyboard, and pressing it, and returning to the page. And it's not going very well. And it seems obvious that Mr. Furlanetti is about to figure out Lance's problem and bust him and ruin the secret. And then this happens. Mr. Furlanetti's fingers had begun to drum on the desktop. Lance tried to concentrate on the keyboard, but now he noticed that his companion had started to sweat. A gooey sheen plastered his forehead. Body odor began to waft over Lance. M, that was the next letter. Where the hell was it on the keyboard? Lance struck H by mistake and had to break off the search for M and scan instead for some sort of, what did they call it, backspace. A forceful expulsion of air from Furlanetti's nostrils. He was trembling now. Look, he said, don't have all day. Sorry, where's the backspace on this thing? A doughy finger jabbed at the keyboard but missed the destination key and struck something else. Suddenly the email program vanished altogether. Damn, Mr. Furlanetti muttered, all 10 fingers now colonizing the keyboard, scrabbling around to rectify his mistake. The email window bobbed back onto the screen. Thanks, said Lance, trying to sound actually grateful. He resumed his search for M. Look, erupted Mr. Furlanetti, this, not. A cataclysmic series of gurgles shook him from within. His skin had gone chalky. His cheeks puffed out, his eyes widened, and he pitched to the floor, convulsing. Lance grabbed immediately for the phone on his desk. Here was one thing he'd been trained to do since childhood, hit those 3 crucial numbers. He jabbed 9, then 1 again, simultaneously crying toward his open door, help, anyone out there? He knelt, the curly phone cord half wrapping around him, and fumbled to loosen the knot of Mr. Furlanetti's tie. A voice in his ear. Emberton Security. Oh, shoot, I need 911. I dialed 911. What seems to be the problem, sir? No, I need... Mr. Furlanetti was still writhing, his breath coming in quick, gurgly gasps. Lance rose and turned, the phone cord wrapping tighter around him, and hung up and dialed 911 again. Emberton Security. Damn it, I'm trying to get 911. You again? Just please explain what the emergency is. I need an ambulance. A man's in trouble. Could you state the nature of the trouble? Can you please get me 911? Sir, calm down and state the nature of the medical emergency. The man needs an ambulance. I don't know, it's some kind of seizure. Hold on. Silence on the line. Mr. Furlanetti's breath returned to normal. His eyes bulged less severely. The voice was back. I've dispatched first aid to your floor. 4th, correct? Yes, that's right, but why? Lance broke off as Mr. Furlinetti heaved to his feet, pushing Lance away, and ran heavily from the office. Wait, called Lance. He dropped the phone to give chase, but he was too tangled in the cord. As he tried to unwind it, he could make out the voice on the line. Sir? Sir? Lance grabbed the mouthpiece. He's gone. He got up and left. Good. Emergency averted. I'll repeal the first aid responders. Why won't you call me an ambulance? He still needs, he needs to be checked out. Sir, Emberton Tower is equipped to handle these emergencies. Can't I dial through to 911? We route such calls through security. I am equipped and empowered to assess the severity of the problem and react accordingly. Is this even legal? We have everything under control. Thank you for your concern. The line went dead. Lance set aside his fury. For now, he'd better find Mr. Furlinetti and see if he was okay. But the more he tried to disentangle himself from the phone cord, the more enmeshed he got. As he was about to yank the phone free and take it with him into the hallway, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. A hand gripped the door jamb. Its nails were painted maroon. Hello? Called Lance. Ms. Shillingsham pulled herself into view. Good morning. She frowned. You appear to be tangled in your phone. Mr. Furlinetti just fell down in here. My word, is he all right? He was shaking and having trouble breathing. Then he got up and ran off. Oh, thank heavens, so he's all right. Her cheeriness had a brittle edge. Well, no, I don't think so. He seemed pretty sick. I tried to call 911. Miss Shillingsham's face darkened. Lance, 911 is a number to be dialed only in case of emergency. It was an emergency. He was having a seizure or something. Well, I imagine your attempt to contact emergency services was not successful, was it? No. See, Lance, here at Emberton Tower, we sometimes undergo unique stresses. It can be difficult in the anxiety of the moment to distinguish a true emergency from an idiosyncrasy. Outgoing 911 calls are routed to security, who are equipped to make a calm, level-headed assessment of the situation and react accordingly. Do you have a cell phone? No? If you did, you'd have found that it didn't function inside the tower. Signals are suppressed. We can't have people going off the rails and summoning the authorities at a moment's notice, can we? That's the whole point of 911, a moment's notice. Miss Shillingsham made a shooing gesture and giggled. Oh, Lance, brimming with vim, aren't you? No harm in that. This department could use a dose of passion. Now look, don't worry yourself with Mr. Furlinetti's little disturbances. Something far more serious is afoot. A theatrical grimace. Quarterly numbers are in. Oh, is that bad news? Always is, Lance. Always is. I'll need you in the boardroom in 5. I don't know. Excuse me. I don't know about having a meeting right now. I think I should go outside, find a payphone, call a proper ambulance. Lance, this is tiresome. I've explained to you that the tower has personnel who are perfectly qualified. If they've declined to send help, that means help is not needed. I am calling an urgent departmental meeting, and I require that you be there. Furthermore, I require that Mr. Furlinetti be there. And there he will be. Looking the picture of perfect health, I'm sure. All your doubts will be put to rest, and you can turn your energies, your considerable energies, toward helping us solve the sales crisis. Come now. No more nonsense. It's time to meet. Thank you very much.
Can you say creepy? It does get a little scary in Emberton Towers. Thank you, Peter Norman. And our final reader for the first half is Arjun Basu, who also comes here from Montreal. I think that's right, isn't it? Yeah, I suddenly doubted my filing cabinet. Arjun is a very interesting writer who has explored all sorts of interesting technologies, and that he wrote a whole novel sort of in Twitter length bits. But his new book, Waiting for the Man, is a little bit longer and more spacious in its constructions and equally invigorating and curious. Please welcome Arjun Basu.
So I'm just going to set this up. Waiting for the Man is, it opens with a the protagonist, Joe, who is a rather successful ad copywriter, and he suddenly starts realizing he's not happy, and everything tells him he should be. And then he starts dreaming about a man who, if anyone's familiar with Starsky and Hutch from the 70s, he looks like Huggy Bear. And he rides this really neat-smelling white horse. I'm telling you this because it's going to show up again. And then the man starts talking to him, and Joe is so sort of fed up, I guess, with things that he actually listens to him. And he just starts waiting on his front steps for the man. And the media pick it up, especially a reporter named Dan from the New York Post. This takes place in New York. And, of course, as the media picks it up, a crowd develops, quite a significant crowd. Joe becomes news himself, and that's where we are. I had short dreams. I wasn't sleeping well. I was on my front steps, and I slept about as well as could be expected. Sometimes my dreams ended abruptly. The man would get up and leave. And when he did, I knew I was awake. In one dream, we're on an airplane. The man is a flight attendant who smells like a clean horse and wears a floppy straw hat. And he comes over to me and hands me a cup of water. I like you, he says. And then the seatbelt sign comes on, and the plane rapidly loses altitude. The story took up more and more space, literally. The Post gave it 400 words. It was closer to the front, not a column buried with comics and clairvoyance. And because the story was more prominent, better positioned, more people came to watch me. More eyes waiting for the moment, for climax, for news. I felt as if I should entertain them somehow, sing perhaps, catch a stack of quarters resting on my elbow, something, over and over until they could feel their time had not been wasted. No news is bad news, a voice called out from the crowd. No news is boring, another yelled. Bad news is good news, came the reply. And there was applause. You're a very odd, very local celebrity to a very small demographic, Dan said, impressed by the growing success of his little story. I'm a niche product, I said. If nothing else, I understood the compulsion of celebrities to punch out certain members of the paparazzi. The intrusion is immense. It is an odd thought to know that when you get up and walk into your own apartment because you have to go to the washroom, others are watching, knowing what it is you need to do. Some of them imagining it, even. I was a story in the paper that could very conveniently be tracked down and verified, an object of curiosity, a noun. I could have been made of wax, really. I was online. I was the object of blogs. I was not a person. There was a temporal quality to me now. I had become an event. And no one in that crowd, that growing mass, spoke to me. There was little conversation or interaction. This might have made the intrusion feel less invasive. I would have welcomed conversation, anything, but they couldn't. Speaking to me would have broken the invisible wall between us. It would have confused subject and object, like web-generated translations from German. Instead, every once in a while they shouted something out at me, or for the benefit of the crowd, and one shout bred more, and then it would die out and you could hear someone's cell phone ring, and someone would comment about that. I spoke on the phone from time to time, usually it was with my mother, and explaining this to her was almost comical. She wasn't happy, and that got tiresome, and I turned the ringer off. I was afraid of what my father thought. I kept my phone on vibrate. I like your mother, the man said. He was sitting next to me, and then he wasn't. Dan left and returned an hour later with some pizza and a photographer. Oh, the pizza. The pizza place at the corner is sponsoring this. So he's getting free pizza, and it's bad pizza. And the place is owned by Dan's brother, which all makes it very convenient. Dan left and returned an hour later with some pizza and a photographer. He told me the newspaper had been receiving calls. People wanted to see what I looked like, and if they couldn't find an image as if they couldn't find an image online. His editors didn't want to lose their lead on me. They clued into the posting on the internet, that others had gone places they had not. An editor brought up the idea of a photo essay, some kind of day-in-the-life feature. "This is becoming something," Dan said, the proud papa, lording over his strange creation. "A photo essay, a whole page. This brings you to another level." "Just what I've been begging for," I said. "And we're talking about the web," he said, "creating a presence for you, pushing the story on the web in a meaningful way." "I'm not keeping a blog," I said. Dan shrugged and handed me a slice of pizza. "This is Dick." He gestured in the direction of a small, bald, dark-skinned Asian man. His left eye was fused shut, or so it seemed. I imagined him in a war somewhere in Southeast Asia. I saw a jungle, rice paddies, water buffalo. "We're just going to take a picture of you, maybe place some of the kids behind you, and you have to hold a slice of pizza. You don't have to eat it if you're not hungry, but hold on to it." I was hungry, but biting the pizza for the camera seemed crass. "I thought mentioning the pizza was enough," I said. "What's next, T-shirts?" To me, everything in the world that was possible and laudable and not laudable and smart and not smart culminated in a T-shirt. Dan thought about this, storing the idea. I could imagine posters and T-shirts and desk calendars. I could see pizza cutters. I could see apps for smartphones. I could imagine it all. My life was unfolding in ways I had never expected. Were the reality TV people far behind? Was there a TV producer lurking amidst the crowd, trying to figure out the angle? I could choose someone to wait with me. I could assemble teams of young blondes to mud wrestle and dive into pools of jello. I could have a theme song. "We have a deal," Dan said. Oh, the cynicism and wariness, the endless pursuit of cheese, the greed of everything we do. Our facility for ignoring what's best for what's not so best. Dan was sexed by the way this whole thing was unfolding. I understood that he wanted to see how big this would become. He saw the money, a payoff. I understood this for the first time. Maybe he fell asleep every night humming that imaginary theme song. "You should smile," the man told me. I resisted the urge to look around. I could smell him. Dan directed his one-eyed photographer to ensure that the pizza appeared in all the shots and that I held it in such a manner so as to avoid being cropped by the photo editors back at the office. He moved people away to give Dick room to frame his shots properly. "Okay now," Dick said, his face behind a zoom lens Black Olympus digital camera. The thing was a monster. With his good eye looking through the lens, the camera became Dick's eyes, or eye. It was discomforting to watch his eye lens face take the pictures. So I decided to look away. If his face weren't so eerie, Dick could make the perfect spokesperson for a camera company. I lost my eye in a war, but with the Olympus Mega Zoom, it's like having my eye back. Well, that would have been the first draft. The first idea floated in a meeting that would last into the morning and would include copious amounts of beer and takeout. A campaign for something so major would require a lot of billable hours, research, phone calls, walks, more beer, arguments about things that were way beyond our mandate, discussions about Plato's cave, anti-Semitism in Vichy, France, the math on Will Chamberlain's claim of bedding 10,000 women, and then the what-ifs. What if we had cameras thousands of years ago? What if the camera had been invented later? What if New York had been founded on Staten Island? Billable hours spent arguing about the Mets and how the older guys loved saying Mookie Wilson. And what is it with the franchise and whether it really is impossible to love the Yankees if you're from anywhere else but here? We would commission research into the history of photography. We would bring in professional photographers to talk about their craft. We would eat a lot of takeout. We would surf porn on the internet, and then we would present our ideas, and the client would say, "I want this," and we'd do it and charge for everything. "This way, please," Dick said. "What's wrong with your eye?" I asked. Dick looked at Dan, baffled, as if to say, "The thing can talk?" "Just take the shot," Dan told him. He asked lots of questions. He looked at me exasperated, flushed with energy. "Don't hassle him." "Is Dick incapable of speaking?" I asked. "I speak," he said, shooting. Dan pushed back at the crowd. Their interest in Dick grew. The presence of a professional photographer with an array of lenses added a legitimacy to the proceedings that had been lacking. Anyone can have a decent camera, but Dick was a professional. There were undoubtedly bloggers in the crowd, seriously envious while looking forward to putting Dick out of business. They closed in. "Stay back," Dan yelled, and the crowd pushed forward. Dick was struggling to maintain his position. He really was a small man. I saw him as Vietnamese. I always pictured the Vietnamese as being short people, or at least slight. I don't know if that's true. It may be an impression I have from the movies or from restaurants. Dick shot a few more photos. Okay, he told Dan. Take some more, Dan ordered. You can do it, the man told me. I've seen your smile. Take pictures of us, someone from the crowd shouted. We've been waiting as long as him, and we're on our feet. The camera changes us instantly. The belief that being caught on film or on TV, even in the corner of an image, is our road to recognition, validation, to the fleeting immortality that is fame. Old media owns a legitimacy that new media cannot possess. We're more interesting than that dumbass, another voice said, and better looking at it, another. Dan grabbed his photographer by the shoulder, just as Dick was shooting another picture. It was like he was being pulled out of the streets during the fall of Saigon or something. Dick protested, but within seconds they were gone, their jobs done, and the crowd watched the two of them run to a waiting car, jump in, and drive off. The buzz of Dick's visit was everywhere. It was a buzz. That's exactly what it sounded like. It was a noise of 100 discussions. It was the noise of being the only one at a party with no one to speak to, the noise of my invisibility. In the morning, I was on page 4 of the Post. The photo wasn't large, but everyone who read the paper saw it. Page 4 is not a page most people skip. It implied a kind of prominence. Everyone on the street had copies of the Post. Kids came by with it, opened it to page 4, and asked me to sign it. I signed T-shirts and ball caps and pieces of torn-up paper and greasy napkins. More people brought me food. An old Japanese lady brought me a wakame salad, which was a godsend. A hot dog vendor set up shop on the sidewalk across the street. A burger truck parked on the block. And then a dumpling truck. I was creating commerce. People were being drawn to me just to take a look. I was a spot to click into on location-based social networks. A new kind of proper noun. People took their own pictures. They brought their kids, posed them in front of me, took a picture and left. They brought their guitars and sang, their cases open in front of for change. I was creating busking opportunities. They came with sandwich boards proclaiming the second coming. They came with their sketchbooks to draw. They came selling balloons. Girls started flashing me. Older people brought lawn chairs. I awaited the arrival of porta potties. All of this happened in one day. All of this the result of a photo in a third-rate newspaper. My musings on the death of print had been overblown. I suspected they always had been. The very thing that makes the web so powerful, its democracy, is the same thing that makes people distrustful of it. And so while we bemoan elitism, we want our leaders. I awaited the tour buses. And I wondered where all these people were when the story first appeared in the paper. Does anyone read anymore? I had an idea for a newspaper with no writing, just photos and captions. Take USA Today to its logical conclusion. Dan set up webcams. He brought 4. 3 were focused on me, 1 in the crowd. We're live, he said and beamed, like those eagles with their chicks. The tip-tap of his laptop was permanent now. He had 3 smartphones. He had 2 blogs going, one for the Post website and one he had created himself. It's cool with the editors, he said. They can appreciate the possibilities. They see what I see. Apparently hits on his Post blog were impressive. Photos of me were now all over the web. There were people in the crowd chronicling this. Debates fired up. Dan also had all the social media angles covered. I had a Twitter account that Dan curated, he said. But everything on it would be stuff I'd said. My Facebook page had almost 10,000 fans. Dan came across one website for agnostics that was running a special series of reports about my meaning. What do you mean? Dan asked, smiling. Agnostics aren't intellectually honest, I said. I saw the man eating a hot dog. He waved, shrugging. What was he waiting for? More journalists showed up. Newsday, AP, some radio stations, a journalist from the BBC. And finally, almost 2 weeks after I had started waiting for the man, even the Times sent someone. But only for the website, not for the print edition. I wasn't yet fit to print, and for that I was thankful. And every reporter who wanted to interview me brought with them a slice of pizza. This was the tragedy, pizza. Some of it was quite a lot better than Dan's Brothers, but the implication, the commentary about me that each and every slice implied was demoralizing. The medical community says it is healthy to eat fruit, and when you ask for an apple, people think you're crazy. I craved an apple. I told people this. Instead, they would hand me another slice of pepperoni, the grease running off the cheese, onto my hands, dripping onto the pavement. My pants especially were covered in grease stains. And yet they still fit. My pants, my shirts felt comfortable. I'd put on some weight, but not what you'd expect from a diet clogged by pizza. Somehow this made sense to me. My world had changed, and like some old Tex Avery cartoon, the laws of physics had changed as well. I could get thrown off a cliff and return in the next frame unscathed. That night, I dreamt that the man gave me an apple. We walked down a path in the middle of a forest. Get ready, he said. For what, I asked, and he laughed. Just be ready, he said again, and then I was awake. Dean and DeLuca sent me a box of apples, and they sent out a press release about it, and a PR girl came and instructed me on what to say about the apples. They were organic and came from upstate, and how much this meant to the chain. And no one asked about the apples. Thank you.
So this book requires a little setting up to tell you what I did before I try to read. The stories in it are actually taken from old textbooks from the 1800s, and so I kind of played a little like a jigsaw puzzle game with the texts from these old books, and I picked out sentences and played around with them and put them together in a totally different order than what they appeared. So it was kind of like, doing a jigsaw puzzle and ending up with a picture completely different than the one on the front of the box. So one of the things that amazed me about some of these books is they were angry. They had a real angry tone. The one I'm going to read a little bit to you tonight was from a book called Seaside and Wayside Nature Readers. It was actually a series that was written by a woman named Julia McNair Wright. And these books were actually written for school-age children around the age of 8 or 9, but she was mean. And so part of what I loved about her books was this kind of hectoring, moralistic tone. She was a very prolific writer. She wrote 90 books in her lifetime, many of which were religious tracts and moral lessons on temperance. And I think that tone kind of leaked over into the stuff for the little kids. So this one I've called A Nervous Race. And just remember when I'm reading this, I didn't write any of this. I just rearranged it. So I sing an old song when I say that we are a nervous race, and our children are more intensely nervous than their parents. In this book, I shall tell you the secret of this. Then I hope you will wish to find out more of the secrets for yourselves. We bring no cat and dog stories, no tales of monkey antics here. To enjoy this story, you should get a bowl or pot of earth and 7 green beans. I don't know. And then she says, let us get at the truth of this matter at once, with an exclamation mark. Yes, the earth is a great treasure box, out of which come all things which we see about us. Every part of you, except the mind and soul part, comes from the earth. Suppose that I could take away from you all that you get from the earth. What would you have left? If I could take from you all you have from the earth, you would have no house, nor food, nor clothes. You must go and sit out of doors in a very sad state. All your money will be gone with the rest of your losses. You must lose your straw hats also. Sorry, she cracks me up. Stop, stop, you say. I say no. The antidote for this nervousness and its consequent train of disasters is to be found in the serene calm of nature, in the peaceful joys which the investigation of nature affords us. Let us go out and take a walk together. So many people breathing here makes the air bad. Suppose we go into the country. Come into the field, pull up some grass, get a carrot from the garden, cut down a rose or a lilac stem, break open one bean, look at the strawberry beds, notice a butterfly, watch a bee, now notice the hen, watch the swallow as he flies, listen. The woods and the fields would be very dull and silent without the song of the birds. Even the shrill chirp of the sparrow is a pleasant sound to hear. It gives us an idea of happy life. Many years ago, a great poet wrote a song to the grasshopper. In this song, he said that the grasshopper was the happiest of all living things. It did nothing but dance and sing. It ate fresh leaves and drank cool dew. When the glad summer of its life was done, it died. It did not live to be sick or hungry or cold. Well, well, again, she's got exclamation marks. There are many wonders in this world. And then there's a lot of wonders. I'm just going to skip ahead here. Have you never found a lark's nest low among daisies, grass, and buttercups? I think most birds like to have a pretty home. I am sure you will hurry past and not terrify the dear thing. Turkey hens are very good mothers, but I am sorry to tell you that the handsome blue jay is very cruel to other birds. I used to like to watch great flocks of crows going at sunset toward their roost. In the morning they returned. But where are the other birds? Are they all dead? When I was a child, I read that swallows, cuckoos, corncrakes, and other birds would lie torpid all winter. The book I read told me that the birds would cluster in great masses, silent, nearly frozen, eating nothing. And in the spring, they would wake up again, fresh and gay. That is not at all true. And then she has a bunch of things to say about fish. I never saw a boy who did not think that a trout was one of the prettiest things ever made. Once I watched a great fish swimming. He never seemed to stir from his majestic calm. He stole across the line of vision, but without visible effort. He seemed to feel himself alone and to notice nothing. You should watch fish for yourselves. But stop a minute. Do you think you know a little about how to use your eyes as you go about the world? Then we shall put on some new spectacles. Your eyes will be worth many times as much to you as they are now when you learn to observe with care and to think about what you see. Here is the truth. You know that bubbles do not last long. So the fish chokes to death. Dirt is worth nothing. Dead horses and other animals are buried in what is called a muck heap until they are decayed and fall into pieces. The buzzards strip off all the ill-smelling flesh and leave only clean white bones. The sun is up. It melts the bones so soft that you can stick a needle into it. The butterfly is an insect with far more beauty than sense. We may say it is an insect with very little brains. Okay, I'm just going to wind up here because she goes on and on. Do not laugh like a loon. Could you run with one leg gone? If your hand is cut off, will it grow again? No, it will not. Look at yourself. You grow. Your skin is soft and fine. As you grow more and more, your skin does not break. Your skin gets larger as your body grows. Suppose you did not eat. Would you grow? You have a stomach where the food that you eat is so changed that it will make for you good blood. If you stop eating, you will shrink up and be thin and even die. All animals do not have thick red blood. If you strip all the meat off a chicken's wing bones, you will see a kind of rude pattern of a man's arm and hand with a thumb and 2 fingers. Does that not seem a wonder? Now that you think of it, perhaps you never noticed it before. It is one thing to see things and another to notice them so that you think about them. Thank you.
Okay, this I'm going to read from Mr. Jones, this new novel, and this section is from part 2, so it's into the novel. It takes place just after the Second World War, around 1946, and it's in Toronto, and it is with Suzanne, who eventually will marry Mr. Jones, Mr. Emmett Jones, but in this scene, she's with her lover before she marries Emmett, and his name is John Norfield. When Suzanne visited Norfield in his apartment, she didn't know that their words and sounds were being recorded, but Norfield did. He said almost nothing. Suzanne liked John's hands and his feet, the rare smile, his shirts, his smell, his scars, his reticence. She didn't know that Robert Morton of the RCMP could hear the sighs she uttered or the way she whispered John's name, calling him, her lips pressed to his throat, his tender, determined silence. Hello, she liked to whisper in a kiss. Hello. She never felt sure that she was in the same picture as he was. She felt she was experiencing something parallax, disjointed from him. She was always shocked to see him. He left an afterimage of his diffident, lonely posture, his distracted way of walking, slightly pigeon-toed. And somewhere, deeply, innately, in John's makeup, there was money. He didn't make a show of it. He lived simply, worked steadily, selling used books. Many evenings, she found him in his tastefully under-furnished apartment, seated at his kitchen table, writing poetry that he hid with his hand before closing the notebook. Then he'd open a good bottle of wine and cook a couple of pepper steaks. His wardrobe was limited, but it was comprised of good dress shirts and a couple of cashmere sweaters. She'd never seen a hole in his socks. His cigarette lighter was sterling silver, well polished. He never talked about money. He was always clean. He smelled of scotch and cigarettes, raw onions, soap, and some kind of oil he liked, made of crushed seeds. Norfield's middle or even upper-class fingerprint made Suzanne comfortable around him, even though she expected to be chilled. She wanted to prove strong enough to sustain his disinterest. He wasn't an ardent lover, and this was modern. She believed that she lived in an age of enlightenment. She felt an icy need for John Norfield in her blood. She thought about him all the time, if you could call it thinking. He shook her so deeply, she was almost afraid of him, but he made her feel very beautiful. She didn't pretend to agree with what she called John's politics, which she understood to be as abstract or as sensual, really, as those of her own father, who was liberal, even in the way he had a scotch and soda before dinner. She thought that men need their politics because they need to believe they're part of a greater good. She was aware, of course, that John entertained ideas about communism and revolution, but she thought of it as an intellectual hobby, even an affectation, as if he'd taken up chess or a foreign language. At least he didn't wear a beret. It was only in relation to John's so-called politics that Suzanne would feel friendliness for him, a compassionate, slightly domestic forgiveness rather than enthrallment. In Suzanne's country, money and goodness seemed naturally to coexist. The Canada she knew could easily afford to entertain criticism without feeling any compulsion to make uncomfortable changes. She'd read some Marx, and he seemed irrelevant, historical. Her mind wandered. Suzanne was preoccupied by John Norfield because she didn't understand him and could never know him. He could never give give her enough. And so I'll back up in the story in pages, but ahead in time, to a section that takes place in 1953. And at this time, Suzanne of the Liberal tribe of Ottawa family is married to Mr. Jones, Emmett Jones, and Emmett works for External Affairs. This takes place at a lake, Blue Sea Lake, which is outside of Ottawa, and Suzanne has inherited it through her mother. They're Ottawa people. And they're entertaining a couple, Bill Masters works for External Affairs. Bill Masters, Undersecretary of State at External Affairs, cut an alarming figure in a bathing suit. Lake water glittered like quartz in the silver hair on his barrel chest and over his fleshy back. It was a marvel that his small feet and narrow ankles could leverage such mass. Watching him swim, Emmett was fascinated by the pretty movements of Bill's limbs propelling him through the water. Bill appeared to bear no ill effects from the alcohol last night. He slapped his belly and filled his lungs. Great air, pectorals jiggling, a friendly samurai. With a happy sigh, he raised a glass of orange juice, tarted up with vodka. Great place, Emmett. His wife Ethel called, Yoo-hoo, breakfast is hot. She hopped partway down the cottage stairs to the lawn, decked out in a variation of the rayon paisley she'd worn the previous day, with fresh stockings and another pair of strapped sandals. Shielding her eyes with one hand, Bill gave her another wave. Toodle-doo. She trotted back up the stairs to the cottage, gripping the hand railing, and then at the door she leaned back toward Bill, her hand raised another little private yoo-hoo. Bill grinned with pride. Comfy beds you got here. He punched Emmett's arm. Ethel's having a good time. She gets along real well with Suzanne. They threw towels over their shoulders and began to walk up, Emmett following Bill's amazing white feet with their purple veins and frank toes. Bill said, Ethel doesn't get on with too many Ottawa wives. He stopped and waited till Emmett caught up to him. Most of them are bitches, seen from a female mind. I let Ethel stay home from a lot of functions. Better than her being miserable, but it's nice to see her happy. Thanks. Appreciate it. A boat cruised by, a small inboard filled with kids and their parents trolling a couple of fishing lines and strains of Dean Martin slurring the words to, with my eyes wide open, I'm dreaming. The boat was so close to shore, Emmett could make out a turntable balanced on a cooler amid the chaos of kids, life jackets, cokes, towels, and a dog, a beagle. Bill said, Now, there's a guy who likes to live. He walked ahead. I sure hope Ethel lets me have bacon. Emmett wondered how to power a turntable aboard a boat. Sun on blue water made the scene Kodak, a contrivance of color technology. The boat wasn't familiar on this part of the lake. He couldn't see the man's face under a sun hat. After breakfast, Bill and Ethel packed up to leave. Bill tickled Lenore. This is their baby who grows up during the book, and she's about 18 months now. Bill tickled the baby Lenore under her chin, earning her mild scorn. Okay, little baby, I guess you're not the laughing type. Ethel picked up Lenore and gave her a kiss. Lenny put her finger up Ethel's nose, Ethel clucking, capturing the baby's hand and saying, Oh, you little bug. Suzanne retrieved Lenny. Come on, Professor. They all went down to the dock. Ethel was thoughtful, kindly wondering. She'd never met such a serious baby. Her 2 teenage boys were at Upper Canada College, bless them, but soon would be out for summer holidays, becoming strangers to her. Emmett lowered Ethel into the boat. She looked unsuitable for transport. Bill patted Suzanne. You did fine, and turned his back to speak more confidentially to Emmett. I recruited you to External because you know Asia. We're holding the line in Korea, but only so long as we keep the communists scared shitless. Pardon my French. I'm not saying the Americans should drop an A-bomb on anybody, but the commies sure better know it's in the equation. Now, and here Bill shuffled a little, wiped sweat from his eyes. He appeared to be struggling to remember where he was going with this. Again, he said, now, his eyes darting over the smooth blue water, sweat running down his face into his fat neck. Then it came back to him. He was aiming to talk about what everybody wanted to talk about. The Ruskies, he announced. The Ruskies and the Chinese communists are getting ready for World War III. And it'll be the big one, us or them, freedom or communism. Anybody who doesn't believe that is playing the glad game. He gripped Emmett's hand, maybe just to steady himself. We need men like you, and we need you here, where you can untangle some of the gobbledygook we get from Southeast Asia. You're young, you're smart, and you know the Chinese. Japan. Was that? I was born in Japan. Bill looked at him blankly. I'm learning some Mandarin, Emmett explained, though Bill already knew this, but I can't say I know the Chinese. Good. Stick it out. You got yourself a future, Jones. Okay. I said, no, okay. I mean it. Right. Don't dick around. Tell the RCMP what they want to know. You get the Mounties off your back, they'll straighten out the Americans. Then you can get on with your work. Get on with your life. No more suspicion following you around once for all. Clear? Yep. Attaboy. They paused uncertainly until Emmett said, I'm driving you to the marina. Bill laughed, forgot, and stepped onto the hot boat cushions at the warning, don't fall, Daddy. And Bill saying, I'm always on Parliament Hill. Emmett and Suzanne and the baby Lenore were studying Bill. Emmett wondering if it was heat stroke. Bill said, in my mind. Come on, Jones, start this thing. Settling his backside. Bye-bye to Lenore, then to Ethel. That kid doesn't like me. Emmett jumped into the boat. Before he started the engine, he heard faintly Dean Martin moving over the water. Thanks a lot.
I'd like to read you a couple of little things. The first one is the book's opening. It's opening prologue. So this is 1961. So bright was the light outside his window that the frost on the stippled wall was glinting. This he saw as he came awake. A deep rumble from outside had woken him, and a humming in his bed spring. He reached above his head and touched a metal flower in the bedstead. It buzzed against his finger. He slid from under the heavy tick. His feet found the hooked rug. Through his window he could see along the snow to the top of the church hill, could see the cross on the steeple that his mother's father had placed there on a windy day long ago. He wondered what could make a light at night brighter than a moon, and a sound that made a house shake. God, he supposed. The boy heard voices. The younger of his sisters was crying and the older one scolding from their bedroom across the hall. Between his and their room was a grate in the floor to bring up heat. His father's growl and his mother's higher voice rose through it. He went to the stairs and crept down. Through the door frame at the foot, he saw the shadow of his father cross the window. His father was wearing winter underwear, and the boy could see the comical lump at the back, the poop flap, hanging by its button. He did not announce himself, but followed. He stopped in the kitchen while his father shoved his feet into gumboots in the porch. With no more clothes than that, his father opened the door and stepped into the freezing night. The boy copied his father exactly, bare feet into cold boots. He left the house and went down the shoveled cut to where the trucks were parked, and beyond to where his father stood, his face a moving yellow. Above the driveway hill, a fire leapt and twisted, like the fire in the Bible that burns without wood, or the fire that comes out of the rubbed lantern in illustrated folk tales of the world. A genie set free after 1,000 years. The boy could smell hard-boiled eggs. His eyes stung. His stomach filled with pressure. His father set his big hand like a collar on the boy's neck, turned him, and pushed him toward the house. The boy ran ahead to where the door was open and his mother's nightgown glowed. She took him and held him to her hot flannel shape. When the door closed behind them, she asked, "What?" "Sulfur plant," his father said. "Goddamn thing's upset again." Teacups rattled in their saucers in his mother's china cabinet. The linoleum floor sizzled through his socks. A wall cracked. The boy was embarrassed that his father's words for this were so small. The roaring genie eating the darkness needed more. The boy could not say it either, but someone should. The riders had started a diary of the problems they were having with the plant. In the morning, after breakfast, Ella wrote, February 10th, Gas strong in the night, Billy sick again. Nosebleed, vomited once. Hired man, case, with us 18 months, quit this morning. As if poor Billy wasn't feeling bad enough, she had to wake him to say goodbye. The hired man had always been like a big brother. Billy cried, and Case stood beside the bed, strangling his cap in his big hands. He had no idea how to console Billy, so instead he started bawling too. After Tom and Case had been gone an hour, Billy was still in bed or back in bed, having tried once to get up. Ella was brimming with anger when she finally went to the phone. To the woman who answered, she said, "I want Mr. Dietz to come to our house right away. It's Mrs. Ryder. He knows where we live, and so should you. We're your closest neighbors." Half-hour later, it was not Dietz's half-ton that came into the yard, but a little car with rusted fenders. Lance Everett climbed out. "I was expecting Mr. Dietz," Ella said when she pulled back the door. The young man was so cast down she almost laughed, but she would not let him off. "Come in, but I'm telling you, Lance, if Mr. Dietz has the idea he can send you instead of coming himself, and that'll calm me down, he doesn't know me. I'm very angry with him, with you, and with your plant. You're going to hear about it." Like a struck puppy, he entered, shed his boots in the porch, hung his coat on a hook, shuffled forward into the kitchen in his socks. She pointed at the children's side of the table, and he sat there. He had yet to say a word. The coffee was low in the perk, but she poured it anyway. "The crew foreman told me it was a bad night. I'm sorry." "Don't bother with sorry. I'm not interested in sorry. It was a very bad night. Our hired man has quit, but the worst thing is Billy's been sick all night again. He had to go back to bed. It's not fair, you know, that a small child should suffer so you people can make gas and sulfur. If you had any decency, you would understand that letting your plant go on pumping out its sickening stuff is no better than if you came down here and beat that boy with a stick." Lance lost the last of his color. It seemed fair that she had made him look sick, the way Billy always did. He had the sense to say nothing, could probably tell from her tone that she would leap all over any excuse he made. Head down, he waited for more. "You're letting your coffee get cold," which was a laugh since it hadn't been warm to begin with. She would have liked him less if he had taken a drink in response, but he didn't move at all. "I suppose if you could do anything about your plant to make it stop stinking, you would." He nodded. An odd idea came over her that she had power over this boy. She was remembering how he had gawked at her in the community hall, seeming helpless not to, and the way he looked now, punished and sad. She wondered for a second if she'd ever had as much effect on Tom, and supposed that the real answer was that she hadn't needed to. She wondered what might happen if she asked, "What would you do to make me happy right now?" She was almost certain his answer would be anything. These thoughts calmed her. Having wanted to chew his ears off, she now felt almost peaceful. "Did you eat anything this morning?" "I had breakfast at the motel." "Then I know where you live, since there's only one motel in Halton that has a restaurant. I've heard the food there is awful." "Bacon and eggs, most places can do that." Now he was smiling, which made her focus on his mouth. His lips were so youthful, as if they'd never cracked in the weather. But he had grown up in this climate, according to Mr. Comstock. "Mr. Comstock said you're from Saskatchewan." "Saskatoon. I started university there, but I thought the University of Alberta would have more about oil and gas in its engineering program." "Did it?" "No, but it was a good university. I got good professors." "And you did well, I understand." He had been looking at her. At her mention of his doing well at university, his eyes shot down. "It's not a crime to do well. I did." "You went to university?" "Yeah, to normal school. I was hoping to become a teacher, but my father got ill. This is their house, Mom and Dad's. I'm their only child. Dad became asthmatic in middle age, and certain kinds of farm tasks were impossible for him, chopping grain, shoveling chop, so I came home. She watched the play of emotions on his face, his trying to decide on a best response. How odd to be around someone constantly wanting to say what you wanted to hear. It made her wonder what she looked like to him. Her hair was still black. She knew she was pretty, black eyes and a curve in her smile that people always remarked upon. Her facial lines hadn't deepened enough to make that go away. Normally, she followed up the story of her interrupted education with the fact that Tom had come home from the coal mines about the same time because his own father was sick. But she did not say any of that to Lance Everett. What's going on at the plant, Lance? Is it supposed to be like this? Oh no, the mixture of hydrogen sulfide and carbon dioxide at this pressure, it's really new, even to Mr. Dietz. I wasn't taught anything about this at university. So you're unprepared for the problems, is what you're saying. I guess so. They built the plant out of expensive high-grade steel, and that was supposed to take care of unknowns, but this plant gets right inside that steel and cracks it. If it cracks the steel, the gas must get out. That's right, it does. She put scones on the table, and he automatically took one and bit into it. She had given him butter and a knife, but he didn't use them. I phoned my professor in Edmonton. He says it's called hydrogen embrittlement. The hydrogen ion gets loose and invades the steel. When I told him about the good steel they used to build this plant, he said it's probably too good, that the molecules are too lined up. Ella was concentrating hard. She would have made notes, but had a feeling that Lance would wake up if she did, would realize he was spilling the beans. Is that the worst of it then, the hydrogen business? He said there was something else, but then he was talking a language that made no sense to her. Foaming amine tower, catalyst smothered in hydrocarbon overflow. She drew him back out of his trance. Are there many in your family? No, I'm an only child too. At once, Ella imagined an easy life, which was probably unfair. Farmers too often thought that city people were well off. Why did Mr. Dietz send you down here, Lance? The question caused his face to lose its handsomeness. It was more the boy he had recently been that came visible. He didn't say why, but he's been sending me to all the complaint calls. This was so easy to understand. It was hard to believe Lance didn't know. Dietz was gruff and stone-faced. Lance was young and nice-looking, much harder to be mad at. I wish he wouldn't, Lance blushed. I don't mean I don't want to be here. It's nice here. What do you mean? He huffed out a breath, a burden. I've been to the Gerstens a few times. I'm not used to places like that. Ella tried not to smile at this, but did. A city boy with no siblings going into Paul and Gertie's explained itself. Sometimes when Ella had been to visit, the smell in that house would have offended a dog. Poor Gertie had 3 children in diapers. I guess it's time we both went back to work, she said. He got up reluctantly. She could hardly remember if she'd scolded him or not. When he had his coat on, he said, I hope Billy's better soon. I'm letting him sleep. That's good. You can come again, she told him, watching his mouth. You don't have to wait for me to be mad. The lips smiled. We'll keep trying to fix things. I'll let you know how it's going. When he was gone and she returned to the kitchen, Billy was there in his flannel pajamas. The bottoms were twisted at the waist. She slid her fingers in and straightened them. He was pale, but he wasn't green. Who is that? He asked. Mr. Everett, the man you met at the meeting. Suddenly the boy had energy. He pulled a chair to the window and climbed on. Caught the last of Lance's little car circling the yard and entering the driveway. I remember, he said. I like him. I like him too, said Ella.